Mr. Gerstein, you're good to go.
All right, we will call to order the zoning board of adjustment meeting for April 22nd. And Carlos, so who's going to be secretary so we can?
I'll go ahead and run that for you,
Good.
Chairman. That's okay.
That'd be perfect.
A roll
You'd like
call.
to take roll.
Board Member Weber,
Here.
Board Member Hartman,
You're
He's got his
he's
mute
muted.
on.
all right. I'll let the minutes reflect that Mr. Hartman is on, but is trying to.
I'll verify he's there.
Yeah, all right.
Here, guys, sorry.
Board Member Cicero,
Here.
Board Member Jurgel,
Here.
and Chairman Gerstein.
Here.
I'll also let the minutes reflect that our council liaison, Council Member Greg Carl, is also in attendance.
Awesome.
Chairman, if I can go over the review procedures for Zoom and then also quickly on the Board of Adjustment items before somebody will have to read the public hearing notice. But if I can go through a couple of slides about the process.
Got it.
All right. We have procedures both for virtual meetings and the Zoning Board of Adjustment. For virtual meetings, you can participate Zoom, via live stream. There's an opportunity for public comments prior to each vote. We ask anybody in the public to raise their hand for recognition. That's anybody outside of the petitioners. I will transfer you over as a panelist and at the chair's request. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. When you speak before the board, please note your name and address. The city urges you to have your video on when you speak. Public comments may be submitted in writing and read aloud by staff. And there may be a short delay in the live stream just depending on your connections. For the presentations from the applicants or petitioners, all reports and plans are accessible via the links on the agenda. Staff provides an overview. The developer addresses staff's comments and board questions, and all votes are now conducted as roll call votes, which is traditional with the Board of Adjustment. Just a reminder for the board members regarding the procedures for the Zoning Board of Adjustment. You have jurisdiction to make decisions when there's an alleged error made by the building official in the enforcement of the code, to interpret provisions which conflict with the zoning map, to permit public service utilities, to permit reconstruction of non-conforming structures which have been damaged or destroyed, and more importantly, to grant relief from the strict application of the zoning ordinance to a specific piece of property by issuing an area or use variance as allowed within the code. In your review, you may issue a variance if you have findings that the property has some unique condition not typically found in the same zoning district, whether it's width, depth, shape of the lot, topography, or some other exceptional circumstance that's not created by the owner or the applicant, that the strict application of the rules will result in practical difficulties as distinguished from a mere inconvenience, that the variance would not unreasonably affect adjacent properties, that it would observe the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance, and that it would satisfy the conditions that are outlined in 41650C, which is consistency with their strategic plan or comprehensive plan, doesn't impede on light, air, or those items. Each appeal is always heard separately. The public hearing consists of presentations. First, staff provides information to the commission regarding the appeal and the code sections that are being addressed, and then we follow up with questions and answers with board members. After that, the petitioner is then brought into the meeting to address the board, and then it's followed by questions and answers with the petitioner and the board members, and then there's an opportunity for public comments. After the presentation, the public hearing is closed by the chairman, and then the board amongst themselves will deliberate regarding the appeal, and the board may ask questions of either staff or the applicants if there's any questions for clarification. In order for an appeal to be granted, you need at least 4 votes in there. And of course, I urge that anytime that the board considers a motion, that the motion always be in the positive as if you're going to grant it. Now, at the time that you vote, you can make your decision whether you support that or not. All those wishing to speak, including staff and the applicant, must be sworn in. So please clearly note your name and address for the record. Chairman, I'll be glad to do the swearing in that process on behalf of the board.
Great.
All right, and that's all I have, Chairman, and your first public hearing notice.
Who's reading?
I'll be glad to, if that's okay.
That's perfect. Thank you.
All right, the public hearing notice posted for April 22nd, 2021 for the property address is 9411 Old Bonham Road. The Board of Adjustment of the City of Olivet, Missouri will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 22nd, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. Central Time. The meeting will be conducted via Zoom webinar. The link will be available on the city's website. The meeting is in regards to the following application. The property is addressed as 9411 Old Bonham Road. The owner of the property is 9411 Old Bonham Road Trust. Don Sider is the trustee. However, the property is under contract. The petitioner for the request is Harry Freeman with Freeman Homes LLC. Mr. Freeman has an approved preliminary subdivision plat to combine this property with the adjacent parcel and create an 8-lot subdivision. That's why he is here. The appeal request is regarding Chapter 405, our subdivision regulations, specifically Article Roman numeral 8, Design Standards for Land Development, Section 405.370.a, subparagraph 1D, titled Retaining Walls. It indicates a retaining wall shall not exceed a height of 5 feet measured from the lowest grade and the top of the wall. In instances where more than one row of retaining walls is required, said walls must be separated by a minimum of 5 feet. The petitioner is seeking a variance from the 5-foot height limitation to place a retaining wall along the eastern property line. So, Chairman, if you're set, I can go ahead and provide an overview of the application and the items.
Great.
All right, I'm going to swear myself in. It's kind of awkward. I'm assuming it's okay, but I was telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. So, the property is this zone is 9411 Old Bonham Road. Its zoning is SR Single Family Residential Zoning District. The intent of the SR district is to provide for construction of detached single family residences. The property is being proposed to be subdivided, therefore it's subject to Chapter 405 or subdivision regulations. Specifically, Article Roman numeral 8, Design Standards for Land Development. If you have a retaining wall as part of that subdivision, the retaining wall should not exceed a height of 5 feet. And in this case, the petitioner has a retaining wall of roughly 198 feet long, in which a good portion of that retaining wall would be in excess of that 5 feet. And I'll show you where that location is as we go through the slides. If you have any questions, please let me know. The location of the property is 9411 Old Bonham Road. It's a very long property going north to south that's addressed off of Old Bonham Road. The petitioner has acquired or has under contract the adjacent property to the west along with the subject property and has submitted a preliminary subdivision plat to the City of Olivet to subdivide the properties and create 8 single family lots that run along a roadway that's going to be placed along the east side of the property. This is the location. This is right here is Dealman Road, and then Old Bonham Road runs right along here. Now I'm tilting this over clockwise, and now Old Bonham Road now goes up and down here. So it's on your left-hand side. Here's White Rose Lane, and then Dealman Road is down here at the bottom. The two properties compose this area here that the petitioner is proposing to put a new street that runs north to south and subdivide the property into 8 single family lots along with 2 common areas. In that, there will be a retaining wall roughly about 198 feet here, close to the eastern property line. This is the subdivision improvement plans that the petitioner is submitting. And again, the retaining wall location is right along here. So Old Bottom Road again goes up and down here on your far left, Dealman here on the bottom of the going left to right. And then the retaining wall would be located right in this area. So you can see that it kind of straddles a portion of one of the second lot inward and then the third lot on that side. As you look at the plan sets that you received, you'll also note that the lowest parts of the property kind of run right along here in that middle. And there's actually a small little ravine that exists. That ravine is being channeled as part of the process, and it was also scheduled to be channeled by the Metropolitan Sewer District. So channeled meaning that it was going to be piped underground. Now we'll get into the details. So right now, going back to this slide, here's lot 2 and lot 3, and here's that detention area. What I'm going to do is in the next slide is get a closer view of that area, so it's a little bit more visible and you can see a little bit more of the detail. So here's that lot 2, here's the detention area, and here's lot 3. This is where the location of that retaining wall is. It's roughly 198 feet wide or in length, and about 150 feet of that retaining wall will be 5 feet or higher for this portion here, with its highest peak being here at this red dot where it's approximately a little bit over 11 feet in the process. Just so you're aware, the property line is this line right here, this dark line that runs parallel. It is a 13-foot common ground strip before you actually get to the road right away and then the road itself. Within that 13-foot strip, the retaining wall is 9 feet north of the, west of the property line. So there's a 9-foot gap between the property line and the outer edge of the retaining wall, then the retaining wall, and then there's a fencing area, then the curb and street road that would be here. I will note that on the adjacent properties that front onto Dealman, there is a frame garage that apparently in the past was granted a 0 setback by the Board of Adjustment and allowed to be placed right in there. And that's going to come up in the petitioner's comments. I will note that this detention area, again, this is the lowest part of the whole length of the subdivision, and it kind of explains why there is a quick drop in there. What the board is here to assess, based on the information provided by the developer, is why can't they step that retaining wall to meet the criteria of the code, where no part would be in excess of 5 feet. And in cases where the wall has to be higher, that each 5-foot section would be 5 feet apart. So just some items to note for the board in terms of from the staff. The property is zoned SR single family residential. There is an approved preliminary subdivision plat for 8 single family lots on these grounds. That's not before the Board of Adjustment in any form or any way. The developer has received approval to put 8 lots on there. The application that's before you is the subdivision improvement plans that were received. A good 198-foot retaining wall lies along the east common ground. Approximately 150 feet of that retaining wall will exceed the height of 5 feet. And the proposed retaining wall exceeds the standards under section 405-370A, subparagraph 1.d, retaining walls. And Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any questions, but if I can have an opportunity to enter some items for the record, if that's okay.
Please, yes, please.
The building permit application dated March 15th, 2021, assigned permit number P2021-0224, and the plans for the subdivision improvements dated March 1st, 2021, submitted by the Sterling Company. The Board of Adjustment application received March 8th, 2021, including the attachments. Both of these you have copies of. The public hearing notice affidavit of publication, which was published in the St. Louis County on April 7th, 2021. The posting and the list of addresses of properties within 185 feet that were notified. The staff report dated April 22nd, 2021, including the attachments you received. This PowerPoint presentation and the City of Olivet Code of Ordinances, including Chapter 400, the zoning regulations, Chapter 405, our subdivision regulations, and the zoning map of the City of Olivet.
Thank you, Carlos.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any questions for Carlos?
Carlos, go ahead.
I was going to say, unless there's more description, is what exactly is the purpose that they want to build the retaining wall?
The retaining wall was one would be in order to level the subdivision area for the homes as proposed along here. They will be filling in this area, and that they can do. What the retaining wall does is kind of minimize the dip in the road in there. So that retaining wall kind of will allow for the road to kind of be leveled, and it holds up the road on one side.
You mean it's holding up the soil? Like they're going to build against it? Okay.
Correct.
Why the variable
So-
height?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the area where it's located, and I'll show you here, this red dot represents the lowest part of the whole property.
Right.
So at here, you start off with a retaining wall that's about at grade. And then by right here, that retaining wall is about 5 feet high. Then it gets to about 10 to 11 feet here at this red point. That's the deepest point. Then it starts to reduce in height to about 5 feet here, and then back to grade right at this point. So there, the ground dips down. The road is going to go, kind of across.
Okay.
that beat.
So when the soil gets all filled in, is it going to look standard, like the same height all the way across, because there'll be more dirt filled in the middle to make
No,
it level, or is it still going to pitch down and come back up?
On the western side of the wall where the road is, yes, it will look level.
Okay.
On the outer side of the wall facing towards Dealman or east, that will, you'll see a V-shaped face of a
Okay.
retaining wall.
Okay, I see. Yeah, this currently, I know exactly where this is. So this currently is just a driveway, a long driveway with two properties
That is correct.
at the end. And so right now you can see, if you're on Dealman, you can see through the Dealman properties and you can see all the land back there.
Mhm.
So now you would be seeing a retaining wall, and you would see a deep section of the retaining wall, and it would,
Correct.
like you said, V up. But on the street side, it's going to look like an even sized wall once
Correct.
they fill in the dirt.
Well, and correct. And you won't even see the wall because everything else on the top of the wall westward will be flat.
Okay. So this is really what the neighbors on Dealman will be seeing in the
Correct.
end.
Along these properties here, yes.
Okay, unless I'm missing it. Do we have any comments from those?
No,
Neighbor-
I did not receive any written comments in there, and during the, there were several comments during the process of the subdivision process before the Planning and Community Design Commission, more specifically concerns regarding stormwater and the drainage.
Yeah,
But those are things that we're looking at in that process.
and you said they're putting a sewer line underneath there. They're
Correct.
doing some drainage.
Yes, and if you look at the, let me, bear with me 1 second. In the county maps, if I go back there, the county recognizes that there is a ravine that crosses perpendicular to those lots. And that's the low point. So what they're doing is they're grading this area. So there's a valley right here. That valley will kind of smooth out for the most part. Now they'll take advantage of that valley in one point, in the plans. They'll have a detention area on one side. Bear with me 1 second here. They'll have a detention area on one side and then the road going across. So this is low also, but it's a detention area. And then they'll have the road that runs across, and then the area here will kind of dip down.
Okay. So that road's going to be higher elevation than the land to the west of it?
Yes, up to a certain point because it starts rising pretty quickly up here.
Okay. And currently, is there flooding or anything going on those properties? Is that what the concern?
No, not
Maybe.
that we're not aware of any flooding issues that exist, and through the improvement plans that they're proposing, one is that they'll again provide the little ravine that runs through will get channelized, and secondly that they will be providing detention areas on two sides of the property.
Okay.
That'll
So
help
it's not like
alleviate,
water's
minimize.
Jumping into the, running
Mhm.
off and
Correct.
ending up in the lower, okay.
Carlos, I have two questions. One, if the roadway was lowered, to kind of, if they had to stay with that 5 feet retaining wall and the roadway dipped down more, would that affect the capacity of the retaining basin?
It's a good question. I don't have a cross section of that area, and it's something we can ask the applicant. There's not much of a grade deviation between the roadway and then the low part of the detention area. But one of the requirements that the city requested is that they provide a sidewalk along that western end, and that sidewalk kind of pushes in or pushes back this detention spot here. And I'll get a little closer view. Just don't know how good it'll come out. You'll see the sidewalk, here's the street curb runs through here. Then there's the sidewalk. Let me see if I can annotate. This is the edge of the street here. Then there's a curb and then the sidewalk runs up to here. And then the property kind of slowly drips down here, dips down from that sidewalk along the edge. It can't dip too fast, and the elevations look like it goes down about 6 feet on this end to this point, and then at the lowest point looks about 8 feet.
That's the common ground, right? They're not building on that.
That is correct. It's a common ground.
Okay, then the other question is, I believe there's a guardrail along the road. Does that guardrail need to have some distance between the retaining wall? And to support the posts?
Correct. Well, that's a good question for the petitioners. The building inspection staff is currently reviewing that. And there, but right now it's kind of shown right adjacent, but the way I have this kind of blown is probably closer than what it looks. But there will be a guardrail that runs the length of the retaining wall.
And then with every, something that's 10 feet tall, it's going to be like an attractive nuisance to kids, especially. So I'm assuming they're planning to put some sort of fencing, around that.
On
Along
this
the
end, not
retaining wall?
necessarily so, nothing that's been planned or requested from our end, because odds are that the property owners here along the eastern side will kind of make use of that common ground area. I think by code, there is some landscaping that is required, but because of this frame garage, I would be kind of hesitant that they kind of restricted somebody being able to go around that.
But they, a 10-foot drop's pretty big for kids, especially.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'd be curious to see if this is, yeah, the kids, that's a good point. That's a pretty deep drop. Trying to
Doesn't it
picture what
say-
that would look like on the property, on the west side.
Doesn't it indicate the safety fence here? I'm seeing some indication of a 4-foot tall. There are some notes on the plans.
Yeah,
Is the
there-
safety
there-
fence, where's that located?
What are you reading? Oh,
It's a
oh,
proposed retaining wall and 4-foot tall fence.
oh, I see.
That must
Safety.
be it.
And denoting that it's gonna be there.
Yeah, I see that.
Am I misreading that? It's in a couple of locations, but,
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
and then up to the left of the red dot as well.
Yeah, they have an arrow, I see, that points,
Yeah.
yeah, well, that makes sense. That's good.
Okay, so here, and just to make sure, thank you, Adrian, for catching that here. Let's see. Right in this note notes that this right here is a guardrail. And then the notes here note a safety fence, a 4-foot tall safety fence, 4-foot tall safety fence.
Good.
Being on the back side of that retaining wall.
Any other questions or comments? Carlos, can we hear from the applicant?
Yes, Chairman. Mr. Jokers, I'm going to promote you to panelist, and then if you have anybody else from the design team, let me know.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Brian Jokers and I'm with Elite Development and I am representing Freeman Homes, who's the owner under contract for this property and the development here. And I think Carlos did a great job explaining, but I guess we're just in a tough spot here because of the existing garage that is right on our adjoining
Carlos?
property line.
I'm sorry. Carlos, does he need to be sworn in?
Yes. Brian, do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah.
So yes, we're just in a tough spot because of the existing neighboring garage right on the property line. And that's the main reason we're asking for the variance and to do one wall instead of multiple walls, because obviously, as you could see, if we did look at doing multiple walls, the second wall would end up being right up along the property line and right against the existing frame garage, which we didn't think would be a good situation for anyone. So, and just to clarify on the guardrail and the 4-foot tall fence, yes, we are proposing a guardrail there along the street, and it will be set back from the wall to allow room for the posts, the standard distance, and then also the 4-foot tall safety fence will be on top of the wall then, which is required typically for any wall over 4 foot tall. So we will have that as well. And that'll be a wrought iron aluminum, black aluminum style fence. So it's an attractive fence as well. And the face of the wall, it'll be your typical modular block retaining wall. So it's a good looking wall. So the face of the wall that faces the neighbors to the east will be, it's not like it will not be a unattractive wall or anything. So and with that, I'd be happy to answer any further questions on anything on here.
So is the frame garage going to remain?
Yes, that's on a neighboring property. So there's nothing we can do with it there.
Are those neighbors to the east, have they been consulted with these plans?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe they were involved with the planning process, and I've actually met Mark Lapp, one of the neighbors out there today actually, and discussed it with him.
And what was his response?
He was okay with it. He understood that we kind of had to do this based on the existing garage being there, and was okay with when I explained to him the modular block retaining wall, and we would be okay with adjusting. It's typically a gray wall, but we could look at a tan color, or they make it in different colors, so we could consult with them on a more appealing color if need be for the wall.
Brian, I had a couple quick questions. One,
Sure.
if you lowered the road, so you didn't have to build that retaining wall as high, how would that impact the retaining basin?
I think it was more so coming off of Old Bonhomme at the entrance. I think there's a required certain distance where you had to stay, I believe, at a 2% slope or flatter. And then from there, we did come down, I believe, at a 6% slope or whatever the max was. So I think we're getting as low as we can based on our connection to Old Bonhomme and street design requirements at that point. I think that was the more controlling factor than if we could get lower because of the detention.
And then how tall is that framed garage?
I am not sure on that, but just by looking at it, I would say it's 9 to 10 feet, probably.
Okay.
8 or 9, probably 8 to 9 feet, I would say. Just guessing.
And then how far away, to the houses, how far away would that retaining wall be to the existing houses?
Let's see. So it's roughly, as Carlos said, 9 feet on our property, and then you're talking about the existing houses on Dealman.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say it's a pretty good distance. I don't know for sure right offhand, but I would guess 40 to 50 feet, I would guess.
Okay. And then you're also planning on putting some landscaping in front of that wall? Or no?
Yes, we will be leaving any of the existing trees we can salvage along that property line, but yes, we could, I believe we are adding some additional trees along there on the landscape plan.
Okay.
And Chairman, just for reference, this right here, this 3-bay garage that you see right here off of a streetscape from Dealman, or Google view from Dealman, is this right here.
Okay.
Got it.
It actually looks
Okay.
taller than
That peak especially.
yeah. I have no further questions.
Carlos, we have anybody else? Anybody have any questions for Brian? No?
No.
Carlos?
Chairman, I do
Anybody?
have one hand up from the public.
Perfect.
All right. Mr. Lapp, I'm going to transfer you over to panelist to speak before the board. And if you can identify yourself, and also we would appreciate if you can have your video on, which you do. Thank you, Mr. Lapp.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I'm Mark Lapp. I live at 515 Dealman Road. So the retaining wall that I will be looking at.
Carlos, I'm sorry. Just swear I'm gonna get it, please.
Mr. Lapp, do you swear to tell the whole truth, but nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
sir.
I do. So I'm at 515 Dealman Road, which is to the south of the property with the garage on the property line. So my view of the retaining wall would be the first half going south to north. I understand the project. I built my house in 1993 in anticipation of that whole area being developed, so it does not come as a surprise. But it is something that I will have to look at, even with landscaping, and that won't be an issue ultimately. But I'd like the expertise of your committee to tell me that this solution is a necessity rather than an inconvenience. For example, could the first half of the wall from south to north be in 2 5-foot sections? And then further north, let that be 11 feet at the heights because it's hidden by the garage. So that's my only question to you. I want to be assured by you that this is a necessity rather than an inconvenience.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Is there a response?
Yeah, I think, Brian, I'm sure you've discussed this with your civil engineering.
Yes,
members.
I just don't know. We've looked at if we could do 2 walls for the whole length, and I just don't know. I'd have to have them look at doing it for only a portion of it. I just don't. I can't picture how that transition would go for sure. From having 2 walls and then switching back to 1. It's something we could look at, but I don't know if that transition would work, because at the where the red dot is at the deepest point, I don't know how we would switch from having 2 walls to 1 at that point. I guess the one wall would have to tie back in.
I personally think you'd have to have two walls,
The whole
the whole
length.
distance. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But I do think kind of how much space would you need between the garage and the first retaining wall? Then, you got the 5 feet for the second, and then how much distance do you need between that and the guardrail?
I think we have the 2 or 3 feet from the guardrail to the first wall, and then we would have to have the 5 feet between retaining walls, and then also the 1 foot or so of the wall thickness. So that would only leave us with, it would almost put us right up to that existing. It wouldn't leave any room for maintenance for sure between that wall along the garage and the face of the garage.
And I think you might do damage to the garage.
Yes, yeah, I think, that would be another concern.
Okay. Anybody, any other comments?
Is this a
Carlos?
necessity to make the subdivision work? I think that was the question that was being addressed by the neighbor on Dealman. Is this just out of inconvenience, or is this a necessity?
I mean, in my opinion, yes, it is, because it would the other option would be to risk the integrity of that existing garage right on the property line, or it just create a bad situation of having a retaining wall right up next to it.
Or
And
the only other,
the existing garage being right on the property line is kind of out of our control.
or seek another variance for the roadway slopes. That would be the only other thing, but I'm not sure if that would be a good thing to do either.
Yeah, because I know the slopes kind of controlled us, but then also I think we would get into, as you mentioned earlier, a situation where it might hurt our detention, hurt us in allowing us to have that detention basin there to help with the stormwater as well.
It would take a lot of slope to get 5 feet.
Yes.
Carlos, is there anybody else wanting to speak tonight?
No, sir, that's, Mr. Lapp was the only attendee.
Guys, we have any other questions before we close and go into a private session? No? All right. Carlos, can we close the public session?
All right. So, please.
Thank you.
And gentlemen, Mr. Lapp and Mr. Jokers, I'm going to put you back as attendees. If there are questions that the commission has, I'll bring you back in at this point. They're going to talk amongst themselves and then forward a motion if they're ready. Do you have any other questions?
Thank you.
Do you need a motion?
Well, let's hold on
Let's
one
talk about
second.
it.
Yeah, and all right, guys. What are your thoughts? Don't all speak at once.
I'll go first.
Perfect. I knew you would.
I haven't been here in a while, so it's my turn, right?
Good, exactly.
So, you know, when we start looking at these variances, I always try to go back and kind of go down the different points. And I do believe this property, you know, presents a unique condition as well as the adjacent, you know, property having that garage right on the property line. So I do think it meets that requirement. I do think it would be, you know, very difficult to deal with this. And I just don't see it how it could be practical to actually use the two walls. So I do think it does result in practical difficulties. And I don't believe, I think there's ways to mitigate, you know, the effect to the adjacent properties. You know, I do like the idea that they have that safety fence there. I do like the idea that they have the space in front of the retaining wall to add some landscaping, you know, as well. And I do think I wouldn't want to get too close to that existing garage with potentially causing, you know, further damage, or not further damage, but, you know, some damage. So I do think, you know, it is, I think they're addressing the public safety, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of mitigating the issue as much as they can. So those are my initial thoughts.
Great, thank you. Who would like to go next?
I'll go.
Perfect.
So the garage was there first. And if I'm understanding this right, this road is not where the existing driveway is. They're actually moving this road further east. So they can put these, you know, very big houses. These are like $1 million plus homes on this lot on the opposite side of the street. So, you know, they're building this new road knowing they're sort of running along somebody's property line and there's a garage there. So I understand that the neighbor did realize that, you know, having all this land behind him would probably be developed into homes. But I guess I don't know if when they decided to break up this property into all these lots, did they really take into consideration that, they're sort of impeding upon these, whole row of existing homes that butt up against this very nice green open space in the back. So is this retaining wall absolutely necessary? Sounds like it is, because they can't make the street go any lower for the grade. But I'm not a structural engineer in terms of how a retaining wall can be one piece or broken up into two pieces. So I really can't comment too much on how they want to build it. But their whole overall design it doesn't seem like they really got a lot of buy-in from their adjacent neighbors on this. So I'm sort of, if it is the way it is, and this is the only way they can properly mitigate the dirt fill and the water, then I guess it's, it has to be that way. But again, is there, some other option they could do to consider what that property owner was asking?
That's a very good point.
Carlos, can you pull up the entire map of the street? I am curious, now that, that was the last comment. I mean, could the whole road be shifted to the west?
They would have a heart attack if they heard us.
Yeah, they are hearing it. They are. But I do think it's worth discussing,
Yeah.
The required lot depths would not meet the SR district requirements.
Okay.
So right now, when we initially met with the developer and we went through what is the bare minimums, we weren't sure if a road, if the property would have been subdividable to the manner that they are. Once we were able to calculate the required depths, the necessary right of way, which would include the road, that's not just curb to curb, it's usually like the grassy areas along the curb. And then our code requires a 10-foot buffer, which is 13 feet in this case, to run along or any adjacent roadway. This is what was fitted in paper. I think we calculated about the potential for 14 lots. But once you take into the consideration the need for the cul-de-sac, the grading, the detention, and all that, it whittled down to 8.
And the lot that you said, the minimum size, is that because of the house size that's on it? Is that what
Has nothing to do
determined?
with the house size. It's the required depth of any
Required lot
residential
size?
lot. Correct.
Okay.
How far setback are those houses?
I
Plan.
believe the setback of the houses from the proposed road is 25 feet.
Which meets the requirements?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah,
And the code won't allow them to be any less than 25 feet.
I see. So moving the road west would not be feasible.
Well, no, well, it has nothing to do with the houses themselves, which are these shaded areas.
I understand.
Okay, but the distance of a lot line, from the front lot line to the back lot line cannot be less than 150 feet. And that's what
Okay.
I believe that is what they're measured at.
Okay. So the road where it is about the only way it can be done.
Correct. Again, on paper, not considering any of the gradings, designing to the dimensions of the code. This is the ideal, I guess, or lack of a better word, placement of the roadway and keeping it as far towards the west. This yellow shaded area here where the retaining wall is, there is a common strip of property that runs parallel with the road. The code requires it that it be 10 feet wide. They're proposing to do 13. But that doesn't have anything to do with the retaining wall.
Gotcha.
So they've shifted the road and the properties as far west as they could.
I see.
Carlos, I'm gonna, well, not to put you on the spot, but I am. What is your take on this? Is it moving forward, dealing with the retaining wall where it is the best plan? Or is it something that needs to be broken up to meet the code?
In terms of, you know, the
Or
the
giving
way
a
I would look
variance.
at it, that the issue is more in terms of the design and impact that the design and engineering would have. If that frame garage was not there, could they step that? Yes, they could. Given that the frame garage is there, and again, that's pre-existing.
And no fault of the zoning board, obviously.
Pardon. Right. But one of the unique things on this property, and again, it's already there. It's not like it all of a sudden it just appeared, is that, you know, there is a valley right there. You know, as when you pass the bike trail on Dealman, you start going downhill and then come up kind of up towards Obanum.
Yeah.
You know, there is a significant drop in grades there. Now, the code requires a roadway. I think that's what Mr. Jokers was kind of indicating, that we don't want to have too steep of a roadway, so they got to maintain a specific slope, and that's why you see these grades kind of spaced out, you know, in this equal succession in there. They can't be any tighter, is what I think he was indicating.
Got it.
And let me go back one.
So the
and kind of show you
retaining wall is,
real quickly. You see how the 2 foot contours are kind of, for the most part, equally spaced, you know, as they're revised, but you see how tight it gets here or how tight it gets here on Dealman Road. You know, you can't, you know, a new road shouldn't be designed to have that steep of a drop.
Got it.
And that's why they kind of maintain that.
Guys,
it's
any
not
other?
like,
I'm sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, it's not like you want to give a variance to all those properties to shorten that lot length by 5 feet or something. The, what do you call it, the setback. So the road's not so close to all the homes, you know, the properties along Dealman. I mean, did they consider getting a variance on the lot size for the whole subdivision so the street wasn't so close to the back of those homes?
That I am not sure. It's not anything that we brought to their attention or advocated for, because again, on paper, you know, it's the difference between one variance as to multiple variances, as that would be probably more difficult. If there was a need to grant variances to make the lots work, that's kind of self-imposed. Not saying that, you know, that the roadway and the roadway design is not, they have the option of breaking that retaining wall into 2, but I'm not sure what that impact would be on that frame garage.
I don't understand what we would gain if they moved all the house. I'm not quite sure how that would work.
You
No, I mean, to
lose
move,
more
to
than you gain,
be able to
right?
move the street away, if it let the street move more west
They can't do that.
by a few feet.
But aren't you losing more than you're gaining if you're going that route and granting more variances and creating
Yeah,
a more
no,
unique
it's
situation?
definitely,
than just simply installing a wall that's tall enough, covered up by landscaping with a safety fence. I mean, it seems like a very practical solution to the problem where all options were explored. And looking at the conditions that we granted variance, we really do meet 5 of the 5. I mean, it's sort of a unique situation. This improves the area. This seems to be the path of, like, the only reasonable path.
I would agree with that.
I would too.
But we can think of 3 different things that we could maybe do. But I have a feeling all 3 or 4 of those different things we could do would be way worse than this.
I would agree.
You know, I think
Yeah, the
a
retaining
nice
walls.
looking wall that instead of being 5 foot high is 6 foot above where it should be, yet covered up with an arborvitae or what have you. I mean, I like to look. I don't mind to look at a stone, and I don't mind to look at trees. It's personal preference, but for the conditions that we have to grant a variance and considering other options, I don't know what one could do.
Plus, the 11 feet is only in one spot. You know, the rest of it
Yeah.
is going to be less than that too, just, you know, for information.
Great. I think we're ready for a vote or to,
We need a
we don't have
motion.
any other questions. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
And I'll second it. Haven't heard the motion yet. but I'll second it anyway.
I'll make a motion to grant a variance from section 405 .370.a subparagraph 1D to permit a retaining wall in excess of the maximum 5 feet, but at no point exceed an additional 10 feet, as submitted and illustrated in the Birdie Lane subdivision improvement plans dated March 1st, 2021, as presented before the Zoning Board of Adjustment and noted in the staff memorandum dated April 22nd, 2021, and subject to any staff conditions herein.
Now I'll second it.
Thank you. Carlos, can you call for a vote, please?
Board Member Weber,
Yes.
Board Member Hartman,
Yes.
Board Member Jurgel,
Yes.
Board Member Cicero,
Yes.
Chairman Gerstein,
Yes.
and the motion passes unanimously 5-0. And again, these plans are still under review by staff. And there we can have conversations with the petitioner as they get closer to finalizing the landscape plan and the actual materials that would be used for the wall. If there's opportunities to create a green wall, we'll take a look at that too. And then we'll coordinate with Mr. Lapp. Because I understand and you know the impact he will have, because there are public utilities that are going to be opening up some of that area that are not associated with the wall in there, and those are being done in dedicated easements. So again, we'll coordinate with Mr. Lapp and then get back to the developer to look at what landscape options are there and what best plantings would be warranted there, because there are overhead wires and then there's going to be underground pipes. So you can't have anything that's going to grow too tall that starts impacting the overhead wires, and I got to get a better understanding of what those are. And again, we'll coordinate with Mr. Lapp on that.
As well as the other adjacent neighbor too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
And you can see the wiring that runs across here.
Anything else, Carlos? Do we have to go over old or anything coming up?
No, that'll be it, Chairman. I'm not sure if everybody's aware that Jonathan had retired. I think I had sent out notices. He got a job with the city of St. Louis.
Yeah.
Great opportunity for him. He was a great person to have.
was great.
Sorry to see him go. He's a really good guy. And then, but we should have a new planner on board by the end of the, by early next month, and be back to full speed. I do have a request for a variance that we're reviewing, and I'm asking the board if they, ideally to help expedite it for the petitioner, May 27th, if they want to pursue it, would be ideal. Our regular meeting date would be May 13th, but I'd be running it really close to the posting deadline. So I wanted to gauge the interest or know your schedules on that. And then the other thing is several members brought up the start time, if that's something that the board wanted to consider.
6 o'clock. I'm for it.
I could do 6. And I'm good on the 27th.
Same here.
Done.
I'm good on the 27th. I'm ambivalent about the time, but I'll go along with the majority.
All right,
So
Yeah, the
6 is-
27th is fine.
done. And what about 6 o'clock?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Thank
You're serving dinner.
The 27th, all good.
Yeah. And that's all I have. If there's any questions, development still continues on the Olive Corridor. Just real quickly to bring you up to speed. Up at I-170 Olive Crossing, they did a change to the plan, the master plan to add a residential component to it. So that's been a delay. They had to go back to the Tax Increment Financing Commission. And I believe that that's scheduled to go before the Plan Commission back in probably late May or early June. And then it would have to be approved by council. But they have cleared the site. They're doing a lot of utility work. And it'll get busy once they have to start working on Olive, because they have to add an additional lane. So that there will be some inconvenience there. Up at the old City Hall, you've seen the footings in place for what we call the Oliver. It's a 4-story, 47-unit apartment complex, and then there will be a retail building right adjacent to it in front of the structured garage. Centennial Greenway, which is part of the Great Rivers Greenway, that will come from along I-170 and Olive on the U City side. It will cross underneath I-170, go through the Olive Crossing development there where the old Office Max was. And then there'll be a tiered crossing of Olive Boulevard. So there'll be a pedestrian island in the middle of Olive. And then that'll get you to the north side of Olive, right where Chevy's is at. And then in between Chevy's and CVS, the trail will veer north and go through the industrial park, and then kind of go all the way towards Indian Meadows Park, and then get you to Worson Park, where our new community center will be located at. There's a development called Easy Storage. It used to be the old Hardee's or Burger Chef site between Dobbs and the bowling alley. They're building a 5-story enclosed storage facility with retail in the bottom. That still is continuing. It's been slow, but it's moving along. And then across the street from the old City Hall is they're building another, which is right adjacent to the bowling alley, Plant Haven Center, is what I'm calling it. But the people that do the seasonal garden sales at the bowling alley will be providing building a permanent location on the grounds there, along with 10,000 square feet of additional retail space. It's really nice building. Information on the website if you get a chance. At the old Olivet 66, which is the service station, the automobile service station across from McDonald's on the south side of Olive, that is being torn down and will become a Firestone Auto Care Center. Really nice building and landscape improvements that are proposed there.
Wow.
Behind Chevy's and CVS, there's a small subdivision, roughly about 23 detached homes. Those they've been trying to engage with the developer to get redeveloped, and they finally got them all under contract. And they're building a 207-unit apartment complex that is in the process of going through the Plan Commission for review. And then Old Bonham School has a major addition and renovations. We're reviewing the building permit plans. Those have been submitted. I think they're hoping to start work on the addition and those renovations by the end of June. And of course, you've seen the Dealman Road, the improvements are done. I'm not sure when the striping will take place. The weather kind of caused some delays on that aspect of it, but the road looks nice now.
So you're not busy at all, Carlos.
And that's all I have. I don't know if Council Liaison Carl has any.
Well, I will just quickly comment on the fact of all the development you just went through. This didn't just all happen by accident. There has been a concerted effort over a number of years to improve the development going on in Olivet. And what you're seeing right now is the result of all that effort. And part of that effort has certainly been provided by staff, but part of that effort has also been provided by our commissions like you, and that you are the face of the city to many people, including developers. And so I want, again, I'm constantly impressed by this commission of how efficiently yet thoughtfully you consider petitions and render a decision. So part of that, the fact that we are being successful in our efforts to increase development, which the city council views as revenue without increasing taxes on the residents, is that we want to thank you for your help in us achieving that, getting to that goal. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, where this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all. Good to see everybody.
Have a good week.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you
Good
again.
night.